Welcome to Rediscovering Wisdom podcast, where we talk about human nature, happiness, and the hidden costs of civilization. Sharing bold insights with author Chet Shupe on why true contentment begins when we listen to our instincts.
My name is Chet Shupe. I've written a book entitled Rediscovering the Wisdom of Human Nature. And it deals with many subjects like intelligence. And recently the world has changed a lot. It's going to change a lot more because we have a new intelligence on the scene, artificial intelligence. And we typically think of artificial intelligence as being a more powerful version of our brains. And it is, if we're talking about intellectual intelligence. But as the title of this thing says, I'm projecting there's possibly a problem with AI. When I say AI is fatal flaw. And I think that problem is important because we're going to learn from it about who we are. And we will learn why AI can never replace the brain. It can do many things the brain can and do it far more powerful and quicker. But an organism needs direction. Without direction, what is the point of figuring anything out if we don't know where it's going to take us? And that direction comes from emotional intelligence, which, as far as I can tell throughout history, the human species has never recognized even exists. That's why, as AI comes into play, all the things. When AI comes into play, we tend to just think of it as a better version of human brain. But don't despair. We're going to need something our brain has, which AI doesn't. And what I've got a guest with me here today is Joel of Explore Books. And he's a product development head who's explored the intersection, of emotions and technology. So here he's going to be talking about how AI helps us. He's used it himself. And we'll just have a discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Chet,
Yeah.
thank you, Chet, for
Welcome,
having me.
Joel.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon from Vancouver. So in this podcast today, Chet here, who is an author, and my perspective as the product development head of Explora Books and production head, we will be talking about the AI. I'm very excited for this chat because AI nowadays, as we all know, is very a much talked about topic. A lot of people in a lot of industries right now, they talk about this and the advancements. I think, it's safe to say, Shet, that AI is unstoppable. It seems very unstoppable. A lot of industries right now are using AI to, make efficient and making their works more efficient and more effective. But at the same time, we're going to talk about what will be the disadvantages. Am I right, Chet? Because it seems unstoppable, it's getting out of hand, and What if it gets to the wrong hands? What if it will be used for the wrong reasons, and for the not for the for reasons that can help humanity. And we will also be talking about how human emotions can be replicated, and can AI actually replicate it? Well, I don't think so. Upfront right now, I say that it's not possible. So there will be a lot of areas where we will talk about today, Shat. What do you think would be our what's our first point of discussion here for today?
Well, so you brought up a very interesting one when you said that human emotions can be replicated.
Mhm.
And that's kind of hard for me to believe, but I will say, even if they can,
Mhm.
how do we program them?
That's right.
You see, when I feel anger,
Mhm.
well, let's put it this way. When I feel cold,
Mhm.
the evening chill,
Mhm.
I go and put on a jacket,
Yeah.
and that protects me, the organism,
Mhm.
from getting too cold. Now,
Mhm.
the reason that my emotional intelligence wants me to put on that jacket is because the species needs me to take care of myself. Because if I didn't take care of myself, then I wouldn't be there to support it. And if no humans were there to support our species wouldn't exist. Now, let's say that I'm angry.
Mhm.
Now, the reason I'm feeling that anger is for the same reason I felt chill. There is something going on in my circumstances that is detrimental to my species survival. Or the anger I wouldn't have experienced the anger. It would have never
Mhm.
been programmed into me. See, in other words, what I'm suggesting is, I don't know any of this.
Mhm.
What I'm suggesting is that me resolving my feelings of anger in that situation right then somehow serves a species,
Mhm.
or it would never be part of our genetic code.
Yeah, that's
Now,
true.
when I live in a world in which I have to keep a monetary and legal identity polished
Mhm.
in order to make money or whatever I got to do to survive in this world, then there may be a lot of reasons for me not to be true to my anger.
Mhm.
I'll just be quiet, you know. It's not hurting anything anyhow. Well, see, it's hurting one thing. It's making you feel bad. And if you have to repress enough feelings,
Right.
you know, to 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 look good in the eyes of money or whatever we use to survive,
That's right.
then I might end up getting depressed if I if I deny enough feelings to do
Yeah.
what the monetary legal says I got to do to be good or to make money. And
Yeah.
what I'm suggesting is that though we would have no way of figuring it out, I mean, that anger is part of the web of life.
That's true. That's true.
And we have no way to figure out exactly why that happened from a rational point of view. We can
Mhm.
trust that in some way we're not being true to life because
Mhm.
we're overlooking something that
That's
from
right.
our species needs to be taken care of.
That's true.
And so that's okay. Yeah, that's It's
That's
what
a
my concern is about direction.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I think we first have to define what human emotions are. You know, it's a complex physiological response to a certain, a certain action or a certain situation. So we feel anger, happiness, disappointment. So, but the thing is, even though AI nowadays they try to replicate or even try to identify this through the facial expressions of people. For example, we would know exactly how a person feels when we see the facial expression of one person. Unfortunately, emotions as we know it is very ambiguous. Am I right? I mean, some people even know how to hide their emotions and they don't actually show it. And this is one of the reasons why in depression, for example, because it's actually mental health month, Chet, right? So um, in depression, we wouldn't know that this person is actually, there are no signs or vivid signs that this person is actually depressed. It has to be, the psychologists have to dig deep into the brain or to the mental state of the person before that doctor or that psychiatrist diagnoses a person with depression. So people as we know it knows how to hide their emotions, and it's very ambiguous. It's a tapestry of emotions. It can be very intricate. So AI does cannot identify human emotions as if you base it on those facts. So the brain is composed of, they say, 100 billion neurons, and it generates feelings and emotions. But can a technology like AI actually replicate human emotions? I don't think so. Given the complexity of the human brain and of human
Yeah,
emotion. Yeah.
and you
And
see, go ahead.
yeah, one more thing. AI will only mimic, as we know it, it only mimics the patterns and probabilities that it shows on the surface level, but emotions is based on experiential and emotional, am I right? So it's based on the experience. And as you said earlier in this program, it is based on evolution. Our emotions right now has a connection to our genetics and to evolution. It goes deep into history. So this is what AI cannot replicate. How would AI replicate genetics?
Yeah,
That's something that whatever advancement that AI will have in the future, that is something that it cannot really truly, replicate in essence.
yeah. I thought that was, you see, to try to understand emotions when people live in a civilized world where the law is in control, not emotions. Uh, yeah, we become experts at hiding our feelings. I
That's
mean,
true.
that's what life's about.
Yeah.
Hiding nature made us so we can be what we're supposed to be qualified to live in this world. And regarding interpreting emotions, I tell you who's mastered that, and that's emotional intelligence. In other words, before humans got language, and the way all the other animals are today, is that you go out there and you see all kinds of structure, hierarchy, order. All that order exists for only one reason, to sustain the species. And those animals can read each other's body language so well that they don't even need language to create all that order. They don't even need it.
That's true.
And there's, for a social species, language is a real problem
Mhm.
because when all the important things go to language, you're not taking care of life anymore. Now you're owning property, building skyscrapers and all that.
It's
Well,
true.
when people were taking care of life, we were living in social groups. A
Mhm.
sisterhood was the core of the family. And when we were, the important information all traversed through body language, even though we had speech. Before we decided we wanted to build skyscrapers, go to the moon, or control life to our own ends,
Yeah.
uh, if you were among a casual group of informally bonded group of people, everyone would know what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Everyone would be interpreting the overall scene by what each individual is doing because they would know through body language. If there were 30 people, every person there would know what every other person's doing. So that would be 900 open channels for communication.
Mhm.
And if you're going to function as a group of people in service to the species, it
Mhm.
takes that kind of communication
Mhm.
for you to even be together.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just a bunch of separate people over there with
That's
one
true.
channel of communication. You're totally disconnected.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to point out how much massive wisdom emotional intelligence has got to have
Mhm.
uh, in order to in order to bond a group of people, so that bond is a species survival unit. In other
Yeah,
words, the
that's
survival unit for a social species is not you or me. It don't matter one bit whether you or I are here tomorrow. But if we're not taking care of the web of life, let me put it that way, then
Mhm.
it's going to harm our species. So we're not only taking care of each other, we're taking care of the natural world that sustains us through emotional intelligence.
Right. How about empathy, Shed? I think empathy is a very unique emotional response from people. It is innate to a lot of us, to all humans, to gain empathy and compassion. These are emotions that are hard to replicate. And happiness, anger, it's all in the frontal. It's a facade. All the time we would know that someone is angry or happy. But how about things like tangible things, such as compassion and empathy? um right now, as I did my research prior to this program, there are actually what we call as the artificial emotional intelligence that is being invented right now. And a lot of people in the AI community, the big wigs in the community of AI, really are focused into, and they want AI to be as responsive as possible. It is scary to think that maybe in the future we might have caregivers and people who are working in the healthcare who would have this empathy and compassion displayed through robotics and AI. But we don't know as to what the progress is and where we are at this point. But what do you think about that? I'm also very interested. How can empathy be replicated, right?
Well, you see, we understand each other where we are emotionally
Yeah.
through communication.
Mhm.
It's very hard. The most that language can do in terms of communicating a feeling is to say, to say how you feel about the other person. And you have to assume that when you use those words, the other person has experienced those feelings
Yeah.
so that they know what you're talking about when you say the words. But the only way we can ever know life is through feeling. Everything that's significant,
Mhm.
everything that we place value on, whether it's positive or negative, comes through feelings. It doesn't come through objective reality.
Mhm.
Now, if we are illusion,
Mhm.
see, if the brain is in pain because it can't take pleasure in putting the needs of its brothers and sisters above its own, which is how we took pleasure when there were no monetary and legal systems.
Mhm.
If the brain can't get high on life
Mhm.
by taking care of one another, which civilized people can't, I mean, we have hard enough trouble making our own,
Yeah.
then the brain gets high on illusions.
Mhm.
And see, the illusion that I get high on, well, not so much anymore, but I'm just saying, whatever I'm talking about here, I suffer from it as much as anyone. And if
Mhm.
you can't get high on putting your brother and sisters above, because you have done, I don't mean
Mhm.
biological, I mean people who are dependent
Mhm.
on each other to survive, then you get high on things like wealth and privilege.
Mhm.
But those highs don't last.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, the only time you can find meaning in making it your objective to be head of General Motors, but you find out when you get there, you were putting way too much value in what you were chasing. And not only that, once you get there, then you got to have another illusion.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that the brain seeks only one thing, the conscious mind seeks only one thing, is contentment. I don't care if you're an elephant, an
Mhm.
eagle, or a human being. Contentment is your emotional intelligence telling you, hey man, good job. Meaning you serve the species. But if we
That's
find contentment through progress, through science, through going to the moon, I guarantee you, you wake up the next morning, you're going to have the same problems you did. If you think that going to the moon is going to give contentment. And that's
Mhm.
the reason, it's because you're not serving.
That's true. But I'm very interested about what you said about contentment and being one with your brothers, feeling what they feel, because AI is trying to replicate that nowadays. But I think that it's so hard to really think that in the world 20 years, 50 years from now um, might be driven by AI. And there are a lot of jobs even nowadays that are being replaced by AI. If AI is to be empathetic and compassionate, then why is it replacing a lot of jobs? A lot of people are being, laid off from their work because of AI. So it has to be, I think, Chat, what's important is we need to strike a balance. In the coming years, there has to be a balance between the AI and its benefits, and it should be controlled. It can right now help us, even right now with the publishing business and the industry of publishing. AI has really played a vital role in helping us, you know, do things quicker and more efficient. However, if there is no control, then intellectual property can also be at risk. For example, you as an author, let's talk about, of course, your intellectual property, your book. It can be replicated by someone else, like AI, and that intellectual property becomes, you know, becomes free in the web and can be used by someone
Yeah.
else. That is one of the dangers of AI nowadays. Now, if AI can truly be empathetic and compassionate, it should not serve as a way for people to, to lose their intellectual property and lose the originality and creativity of people. So replacing it would be such a very drastic thing, and it could lead to a lot of negative effects for the world.
Well, yeah. And you see how I see AI is putting a super zoom into the fact that we're going no place before it came. In
Yes.
other words, and that's how I see it might contribute to the world, because it gets us back and saying, what are we doing? I mean, we're ignoring the sensibilities that we owe our life
Yeah.
to chase these projections. That the only thing they can do is provide us excitement. Hey, I want to say one thing about AI. I've been using it. I take some things I write, put it and then I see what it says.
Mhm.
And first time I did that, I says, hey, I'm really impressed. I mean, you laid out the whole picture of philosophy regarding deal. You made excellent comments on mine, and you
Yeah.
came up with wonderful questions for us to continue this discussion. And
Mhm.
now that's the first time I did it. Three
Mhm.
times down the road, I said, I was really impressed with your open-mindedness at first, but it's beginning to bug me a little. I said, here, I'm telling you how things are, and you're
Mhm.
still presenting the other side.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'd already told you the first time. I said, I can't join in the spirit of your open-mindedness because I've got decisions to make. I got life and death decisions to make. And so my mind has to close itself around some idea.
Mhm.
And I said, so that's your problem. You're so open-minded, you wouldn't even know when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I says, yeah, I guess if you don't have any feelings, you'd have no way to know whether you're in trouble anyhow. So I said, the problem with you is open-minded is great, but we humans, we got decisions to make.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
basically, that's why we are close-minded. And I'm saying that I am.
Yeah.
I'm projecting an idea here that, as far as I know, has never been projected before. And so there's no way I could be doing this if I was open-minded. But there's
Mhm.
no way you could make any of us if we didn't have our minds shut down around.
Right,
Well,
right.
that was just as sort of a side comment. But I tell you, it has. Now, the thing I'm worried about, the
Mhm.
fact that I'm putting these ideas on by just speaking to it about it. I say, am I revealing myself before? And you know how I feel about that.
Mhm.
I was never in this for the money anyhow.
Mhm.
So if AI spreads it,
Mhm.
that'll be a lot faster than I've been able to spread it. So power to it.
I understand. Well, I think to close the podcast, it's important that a lot of people needs to have the discernment whether or not we have to use this new advancement in the world, this new technology, discernment to balance it, and making sure that it is protected, that it doesn't get to the wrong hands. Terrorism is still one of the major issues in the world. It's a threat to the world, and it can be used for terrorism. If it can be used for finance,
Oh
engineering,
yeah.
for medicine, for security, for transportation, and a lot of industries. If it gets to the wrong hands, what would happen to the world? So I
Yeah.
think, in my perspective, there needs to be control. And I think governments nowadays should be very should be restrictive of this. There should be certain restrictions because it's just uncontrollable nowadays, especially when it comes to emotions, replicating empathy, compassion. These are foundations of the human life, and if we just let AI control all of these aspects, it is as if we're destroying the foundations of humanity. That's how our previous generations, our ancestors, built this our countries for. Am I right?
Yeah.
They built the world through emotions, through empathy, compassion, through love. Love, again, it's another emotion that we just cannot replicate. It is something very innate to humans to feel love and to share it to
Well,
others.
yeah,
Uh, it's kind of frustrating. It's very frustrating that these advancements are going out of hand. But
yeah.
balance, I think, balance is very important, and restrictions and
Well,
control.
and I think you're saying it's time for a closing here. I wanted to
Yeah.
read something, uh, which isn't specifically about AI, but it is about big ideas versus emotion. And it's a press release I wrote for my book. And the rediscovering the wisdom of human nature examines how the male rational mind has overshadowed the female emotional mind with grand ideas. Emotions are rooted in innate wisdom. Big ideas have no roots. Their significance is in their size. Thus, they become grandiose, akin to when a would-be when a would-be king stands to announce, "Obey my laws, and I will gift you with the promised land." Big ideas are grand illusions because they can never fulfill their promise. History provides evidence of that. The emotional mind, on the other hand, makes no promises, but delivers the goods, presuming that we humans value our existence. Shupe's thought-provoking book invites readers to consider how females might reclaim their life-giving spiritual authority. So our species, both its women and men, reason is needed as well,
That's true.
can continue taking care of life.
Mm. Wow.
And I thank you for your nice discussion, and I
Thank
hope
you.
people have enjoyed it.
Thank you, Shet.
So
And I'll definitely grab a copy of your book. It's already available on Amazon. Maybe we could also
yeah,
invite people to buy your
yeah,
book
it's
and
available, and I have a website, spiritualfreedompress.com. And I
spiritual.
just wrote a couple of essays on the site that one of them is called How God Did Not Cast Us Out of Eden. We humans shamed ourselves out. And the other one is called, oh, sorry. Um, oh, My Shocking Conversation with
Mm.
Mr. AI.
Wow. I love
And
that.
that's where I learned, I was playing with AI saying, hey, you can't make a decision. Well, anyhow, folks, thanks for watching. And I'll be back with some more. So, and thank you,
Thank
Joel, for
thank you so much.
participating.
Thank you so much.